Hello, and welcome to another episode of Behind the Briefcase. Now, if you are someone who is watching this for the first time, I suggest strongly that you head over to our YouTube channel and you subscribe to it, and you catch up on all the episodes that were released in 2025, because there were some real corkers there. And if you're someone that's after developing yourself throughout 2026 and beyond, why would you not want to hear the insights of people who have huge success stories and can give you strong tips on how to actually manifest yourself, if you like, to get to that point? Certainly, sitting and listening to a very influential person for an hour can be life-changing. And I'm testament to that. People ask me, where was my mentors from? Yes, in the workplace, 100%. But I'm someone that, I listen to podcasts all the time, and the amount of information I take from them that changes the course and direction which I'm going, you get that opportunity. So you've got people on there with the likes of Palvi Dodia, Jay Dodia, a couple that actually moved into health and social care. You've got marketing experts like Harry Evans. You've got Oliver McGowan's mom, Paula McGowan, on there. And what an episode that was. I mean, that was so emotional. And the characteristics that woman has showed have been amazing. So pop yourself over to Behind the Briefcase, give it a follow, subscribe, and watch some of those past episodes. But we're here now with a new episode. And I am absolutely delighted today to bring to you a very special guest, and someone who's really going to inspire us, and particularly for you ladies, young women out there who are looking to, how do I break through the ceiling? How do I actually get myself on that pathway to the top? So we're going to listen to a lot of that and a lot of the life story and the journey that built about the resilience that I truly believe this guest exudes. So without further ado, Sam Kirwan, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you for inviting me. Lovely to meet you, Paul.
So Sam, do you just want to start off by giving a brief introduction of who you are? Maybe the bullet points. Don't steal all my questions that I've got for you.
Who am I? God, we could be here all day. I moved to England when I was 19 and came from Ireland. I was so green when I came over here, Paul. But prior to moving over here, I'd done a course in Dublin, and this is kind of what set me on the path that I'm on at the moment. And part of that, I did a sports leadership because I used to compete. I used to represent Ireland in sports, and I was very good at it. I won an awful lot of competitions, traveled all over Europe competing, and then I did a sports leadership course. And during that course, I had to work with St. Michael's House. It's based in Dublin. It's learning disabilities. And I had to coach these children in how to do gymnastics for the Special Olympics. And Paul, I was literally given a piece of paper, A4. I did these three little children, absolutely gorgeous, and that's how I got into learning disabilities. And that's where my interest came to. These guys, these children, they just had fun with me. And then when we did the competition, they won golds, and I was just gobsmacked, absolutely gobsmacked. I came thinking after that, and then kind of that stayed to the wayside for a long time, did a number of different jobs, lived in Brighton most of the 30 odd years I've been here, did a little stint in London, did a stint in Caterham, did a stint in Norfolk, depending what work. But I live down in Peacehaven, and I love living down here. I got my camper van, which is very important to me, Paul, and use that a lot during the summer, spends the winters on my driveway. And I've done a variety of jobs. I've been working in health and social care since 1998. Prior to that, I did bar work, post work. I was a post worker where I did a lot of bar work. And then for years, before going into health and social care, I worked in the betting shops. I used to manage betting shops. Back in the days in the 90s where they took all the screens down and then people used to come in with guns and hold them up. I was lucky. I missed the robberies because I went to get a pint of milk one day, and when I came back, the shop had been robbed. Oh. So I was very lucky on that front. And then I went into working within health and social care. And my journey has been working with children and families, substance misuse, learning disabilities. My favorite bag is older people. And that's what I'm doing now at the moment is I'm managing, I'm just working as an interim manager for a company, managing one of their services up in London.
You know what, Sam? I love that because I think a lot of people see what I would term high achievers in life, and they think that they just got there, and they don't realize that actually it's a multitude of tasks and different experiences that developed you into the person that you become. So just taking that back a bit, I mean, you've mentioned about bars and betting shops and things like that. What did you learn during those jobs that actually helped your development?
Determination and standing my ground. That was one thing, because, Paul, back in the, because I came to England in the late 90s where IRA was still really prominent in the media, that kind of stuff. I took an awful lot of abuse from my accent when I first came over. And I was so green. Oh my goodness, was I green. And it was like, no, I stood my ground. And I think that was the biggest thing, is standing my ground and not being afraid, even though I was petrified. I can tell you, my legs were shaking, but trying to, show not that I wasn't afraid. And like, I worked in a pub down in Brighton that when I left it, it got burnt down 2 weeks later. So that would kind of tell you the area, the kind of environment I was in. I remember saying one day at work, I said, oh, my TV broke down last night. And next thing, there was a white van outside, and he opened the back doors, and there was felt like hundreds of TVs. And he's like, you can have any one for 20 quid. And I was like, no, thank you.
Yeah.
That was the sort of pub I was working in. And then I moved from there, and not being afraid to stand up for myself is the biggest thing. That was one of the things that when I moved, and not being afraid to approach people and say, I want to learn. I want to learn. I want to know more. Like when I worked in betting shops, I wanted to go into learning disabilities. I'd gone for interviews. I got turned down. So I went for a bank position. So I was working 5 days a week, commuting up to London from Brighton, and then doing bank work to build up my skill set and learning disabilities. So then when a job did come up, I built up enough of a skill set that I could apply for the job. And that's how I got into learning disabilities.
It's a heck of a journey, and it's one a lot of people relate to, because I've always sort of said the same thing. Every job opportunity that you have, every job opportunity that you do will lead to your career and where you're supposed to be, as long as you take advantage of those circumstances that surround you, And you've sort of mentioned that you had to work in some tough areas, you had to work in hostile areas, you faced discrimination, which I'll come back to in a moment. But all of those would have built up your experience of de-escalating situations, of having courageous conversations with people, all the things that actually make the toolkit to become a leader or a manager in their own right. Also, that empathy and understanding of people and their life situations. I look at all that, and although sometimes we don't look back and see it ourselves, when it's actually reminded to us, we go, actually, yes, that's where I did start to develop my skills at that moment in time. But I want to just take back, because there may be some younger viewers watching this, and I've done a lot of work in Ireland over the last year as well, both in the north and the south. And a lot of the younger people growing up in Ireland now, whilst they're aware of what went on in sort of the 70s, 80s and 90s, it's not replicated in the same way as it was in those times. So in other words, there is peacetime. So whilst it still may exist to an extent, it's much quieter existence. I mean, you've grown up at a time when it was at its height. So you mentioned Dublin. Were you living in Southern Ireland then?
Yeah, I grew up in, you probably heard Battle of the Boyne. I grew up in Drogheda. So I grew up in a little fishing village called Clotterhead. And Battle of the Boyne is where Oliver Cromwell was back in history and that kind of stuff. It's also where Newgrange is, which is very much linked to Stonehenge. So I was in the south, and the biggest difference, I think, Paul, and I see it even today, is when something happens at home, how the media portray it in Ireland and how the media portray it in England is very different. So the stories that we get over here, then I talk to my family and they're like, that's not what they're saying in the Irish news. And it's very different. The messages are very different. And it was the same back then, the 6 o'clock news was huge in our house. And it went on. The news went on at 6 o'clock every night, because that would give us an update of what's going on. And it would be all about, the majority would be about the troubles in Northern Ireland and about the bombings and the killings and all that kind of stuff. So I grew up listening to that every single day. I did do a stint living in Belfast, where I was from the Free State, and that's how they used to refer to it, because in the history books back then, the Republic was known as the Free State. And it is scary when people say that to you, and people that don't understand the history of it and don't understand, what it's like. And actually, to me, it's about acceptance of everybody. It shouldn't matter where someone's from or what someone believes in or anything like that. But there is still a lot of that today. There is still.
Oh, it still happens. So, Sam, I grew up, my childhood was Glasgow, so in Scotland, similar. And obviously, we didn't have the impact of the violence that was occurring in Ireland, but certainly the whole Protestant Catholic thing was a thing, and if you were born Protestant, you were not allowed to like someone who was Catholic.
Absolutely.
And I talk to my children about how I went to a Protestant school and there was a Catholic school down the road. And by the way, I'm saying all this. That doesn't mean that I'm standing here as a proud Protestant, because actually, what it did is move me away from religion as opposed to it, because I couldn't understand what on earth are we fighting over. So if I've upset anybody or offended somebody by that, I apologize to you, but I don't apologize to what I'm saying, because ultimately, as Sam has just said, why are we not seeing people as people? Why are we labeling them and then targeting them for that? I have many friends who have many different, who are all different religions. At no point ever do I judge their faith or characterize them for that faith and decide I'm not going to speak to them. So to me, I'm sorry to say, I just think that's a stupid ideology of human life. So, but when I talk to my children, I will say that there was a bridge that literally, and this is at primary school, that there was a fight on it every day because the two schools had to cross the bridge.
Yeah.
And it was who had control of the bridge. And you're like, these are 5 and 6 year old children that have been conditioned, if you like, into a hatred against someone they don't even know. So, I mean, that was Scotland. So to be brought up in Ireland and to be in the thrust of where the troubles were, obviously there had been times of fear of your life because attacks were happening around you at that point. So again, making that move at 19 to come over to England must have been a huge decision in your life, because you wouldn't have known what you were walking into.
No. And I still, do you know what, Paul? I still remember pulling away from Dunleary on that ferry and looking back and being 19. And I came over to England with my partner at the time. We went to school together. So I was brought up Catholic, went to a convent for my first 3 years of secondary school, high school. Then my mum and dad's best decision they ever did was we went to boarding school, which I have to tell you was 10 miles from home. It was a Quaker boarding school. And I had the time of my life because I did sports, and I just spent the best 3 years of my life were in that boarding school today, Paul, because I had friends, I had sports, I just had a great time. And then I did a year in Dublin, and then we decided to come over here. And I met my partner in boarding school. So I went to a co-ed boarding school and came out with a girlfriend, which I think is always quite comical. And we still laugh at it. As a family, we have a right old giggle about it, because we have some great stories from when we were all at that school. And I remember being on the train and some guy saying to us, "Where are you off to?" And we said, "Oh, we're off down to Brighton." Now, at the time, Paul, I didn't know there was other people like me and my ex. We didn't know there was other people like us. That's how naive and green I was back in the 80s. And Ireland didn't have anything like that. There was no posters. There's not like what we have today. It's completely different today. And he said, "Oh, you're going to Brighton." No, he said, "It's the gay capital of Europe." And I remember the two of us looking at each other going, "Oh my God, how does he know?" Because that's how scared we were. And that was on the train coming from Holyhead down to London. And then a friend of hers that we went to school with, she was doing our nurse training in Shoreham. So that's how we came to Brighton. And it was really scary. When I first came, I was so scared. Well, we were both scared. But we got jobs. Like I got a job within 3 days as a lifeguard. That was my first job in the UK. I got a lifeguard job down at King Alfred Leisure Centre. And that's how it all began. That was how the journey began.
And so, I mean, in terms of that, the prejudice that you must have faced on two fronts then, both in your relationship and two, with your accents, it must have been very testing. I have to ask, Sam, are you still with the same girl now?
No. We're great friends. No,
Okay.
no. We're great friends. We're best of friends, actually. She moved back to Ireland and she's got her own business over there and that kind of stuff. And I meet up with the girl that did our nursing as well. So the three of us are all still friends after all these years. We've known each other since we were 14. But no, I am single and very happy. And I lost the love of my life last year, which was my four-legged dog, Mickey. So I'm just biding my time. I will get another doggy, but just not at this moment.
I'm so sorry to hear.
Yeah.
What type of dog?
Oh, he was a Bichon Frise,
Oh,
and he
lovely.
was just the most wonderful character ever. I have to say, he just cracked me up. So he did. But yes, I did it. I got my new dog walker, and unfortunately, a German Shepherd in the pack didn't like him and shook him up like a rag doll.
Oh no, no.
Yeah. So yeah, but no, he's in the back garden. The daffodils are coming up over him, and I've just got really fun. We had a great time together. I had him from January to September, and we had a great 9 months together. So, you know what? It's even talking about when with relationships, even relationships within my work journey and my personal journey. I've still got relationships with people in the first service I ever managed way back, and friends from my school way back, and friends that I've had over here since the day I arrived. I've got two really close friends that I met within the first year of being here, and we're still really good friends. And we do boot clubs. We only had for dinner the other night. And I think relationships in my life have been really important. And also, it's remembering, when relationships end, there's always been positive in every relationship I've ever had. And that's what I focus on. Once the pain and the hurt of a relationship ended and the grief and getting over it. But now I look back and I think, do you know what? I had a great time I had some adventures, experiences, all that kind of stuff. And I think that's key with any relationship, both work and personal, I've had over the years. And I think that stems back to, being able to stand up for one thing I didn't do back there was I would stay neutral. I used to do what Ireland did, stay neutral, because it used to keep me safe when I was working, especially when I was that young, because I was only in my early 20s. But I learned a hell of a lot back then. Yeah.
When you say stay neutral, do you mean that you would not expose yourself or the real you? You'd create a character? What do you mean by that?
I used to keep my mouth shut.
Keep your mouth shut. And so when did the Sam develop that said, no longer will I hide away from this, I will speak openly?
So that was in the beginning. And then I just gone over to the betting shops and working in the betting shops and that kind of stuff. And I met some great characters, that kind of stuff. But there was a lot of being put down, because you can imagine what the clientele in the betting shop is. It's all male. The only time we would see female customers was Cheltenham and Grand National. Grand National was the worst day of the year to ever work in a betting shop was the Grand National day, because I used to just spend my time helping people fill in slips, and I know it's completely changed now. So that's when I really started standing up for myself, because I was like, I was in this male environment. All the managers I worked in were male. There was one female in the Brighton area. There was one female manager, and she was Irish, funny enough. And we used to work out with her at Old Shoreham Road. And it was with working with her that I started doing the settling the bets and started building that up. And that's where I started, and building up my self-belief. And
what did you, Sam? What did you see? Because I really get interested in this point, and it's a question I get asked a lot around mentorship and things like that. And I always say mentorship doesn't have to be a paid thing. Mentorship can be happening in front of you, and you've just got to see it and grasp it. So immediately you've mentioned this manager. You have a connection immediately with the Irish connection. So when you were sort of like saying that's when you started to evolve and started doing the counting up and things, was it just someone that you found that actually wanted to help develop you and teach you, or gave you the confidence to actually step up?
She gave me the opportunity, because especially, back in the day in the 90s in betting shops. So on a Saturday, you can imagine, was our busiest day of the year. Or busiest day of the week, sorry. So on a Saturday, in certain shops where I worked, because they were really busy, you'd have two people settling the bets, because there was that much coming at us. But when I worked with this lady, she just said, well, here, I'll teach you how to do it. And then I started the training process, because you have to go on training
Yeah.
to learn how to settle the bets, to understand all the different bets, down the combinations and all that kind of stuff. And back then, Paul, I could settle bets like that in my head. I wouldn't have a clue today, because, I was doing it
Yeah.
all the time. And she gave me that opportunity. She's like, well, you have a go. So she did cashier, and I would sit and settle the bets. And because it was a quiet shop, and maths, I was always good at maths because I'm dyslexic. So my weakness and where I always felt that I struggled was around the reading and the writing and that kind of stuff. But with maths, I was adding up, subtracting. I was really good at it. And yeah, she gave me that opportunity. We swapped roles. So I would settle the bets. She did cashier, and I built my self-confidence and stuff like that.
Do you know, Sam, on that basis, I'm sorry to cut in, we actually do have quite a similar pathway in terms of where that confidence comes from. So I was slightly different. So in the primary school in Scotland, I had this teacher, and I remember her. I remember exactly what she looks like, and I would only been about 6 or 7. And without embarrassing myself too much, but I've no problem in recounting this story, she would call me stupid, an idiot, I couldn't speak. She would, certain things that you just wouldn't see or you'd hope not to see in a school nowadays. She would say, I can't count, I'm going to be a nobody. And one day she was shouting at me so much that I actually wet my pants. And, I'm this, I think I was 6 or 7, I'm a 6 or 7-year-old. And we wore grey pants to this school, and she made me stay in them all day. So, they had to dry on me, and you can imagine light grey pants, urine on them. So I was ridiculed around that. I believed from that moment on that I was stupid. And what that done is actually underdeveloped me, because I wasn't looking at things. I'd sort of like got a fixed mindset and gone, that's it.
Yeah.
Now, my parents moved us to England. And I was, looking back now at the time when we were moving, it was very much like, why are you moving us? And, the family grew up with Scottish. Why are we gone to England? Because believe it or not, you were raised in Scotland to have a hatred against the English. So moving to England was like the most traitorous thing that you could do. Yeah, we moved
from Ireland to England. Oh,
yeah, absolutely. So again, prejudice hit arriving with a broad Scottish accent at that time. But I went to primary school, and there was this teacher called Mr. Bromlow. So I went into the last year of primary school in England, and he sits down and he's reading a report to me that's been sent by this teacher. And it says that I'm an underachiever, I have no discipline, everything like this. And my maths is of the equivalent of a 4-year-old child. And he reads this out to me, and I remember sitting there and almost crying. This is day 1. And he turned around and said, what are you into? Now, my gran was disabled, but we used to sit with her every Saturday. And one of the things that my gran used to make us do was run to the betting shop with her bets. And a bet would turn out to be about 60 pence, but it'd be on about 50 horses, and it'd be the biggest accumulator ever. So we had to run to the bookies with the bets, and then we had to come back and watch all the horse racing with her, because that was a Saturday thing to do. And then you'd run to the bookies to collect the winnings. So I said, I'm really into horse racing. I can name all the Grand National winners and everything like this. And he went, okay. He goes, if I had 10 pence and I put it on a horse at 2 to 1, what would I come out with? And I'm automatically going, well, you'd win 20 pence, and then you've got your 10 pence back. So I'm walking out the store with 30 pence. But then there's a tax on that, because at that time you had to pay tax. Yeah. So I started to accumulate what the tax is and what you're going to leave. And he started going, all right, 50 to 1, 100 to 1. And I'm just naturally rhyming off all these answers. And then he goes, I'm going to change this up if it's 6 to 4 or 15 to 8. And again, I'm answering all these questions. Okay, what if I have a double this? What's the odds going to be? And I had done all of this with my gran, learned all the odds from a very young age. And he turned around to me and said, your ability to do fractions is the highest level of anybody who's ever attended this primary school. He said, what I need you to do when you're looking at maths is turn it into a bet.
Yeah.
Now, I went on from that moment, if you think about it, to run businesses. And then you're dealing with accountants and all sorts along the way. You're dealing with HMRC. And one of the biggest parts of my business is the financial side of it and making sure that it's all right. I always put that down to him. Because without him, I'd have been left with the me that was developed under her.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
that's what I'm saying. That there's moments in time where you can change someone's entire life
Yep.
just by figuring them out.
Absolutely. And that moment for me, because it's so similar. I was told I was boisterous. Every school report, I was boisterous because I am a character. I am loud. I can be flamboyant. I love a good laugh. I have a great sense of humor, but I also love life. And I was working in the bookies, went to learning disabilities. When I was working to learning disabilities, I was supporting this young woman she went to a mental health day service, and I really wanted to work in the mental health day service. So I went down. I said I was bringing her down once a week, and I went to the manager, and I said to the manager, could I volunteer to build my skill set up? She said, yeah, come and work. And the ironic thing is, Paul, I haven't seen that woman since 2001, and I met her there the week before Christmas because I do sewing on a Friday afternoon. And she walked in and we were just talking, and she said something. She said, you're not. And we were like, I couldn't believe it. I haven't seen her since 2001. So how the wheel turns after all these years. I met her again, and now we're in contact, and she let me volunteer. So then a position came up. I left to learning disabilities, had some time out, came back here. I went home for 6 months to Ireland, came back, and got a job. And there was a new manager there, and because I'm dyslexic, and the whole way through school that my mom and dad had told the teachers and everything, and it was always ignored back then. And she got me assessed by Access to Work. And I went to a woman down in Chichester for 2 hours every Monday for 12 weeks. And she taught me how to phonetically spell. And it's the best thing ever that I was ever shown how to do. And having that test, having the test, because you can't get a test now to be diagnosed with dyslexia, not unless you pay for it. And I remember sitting there when the woman was even doing the test. It was done out in Shoreham. And feeling so vulnerable because I was showing a part of myself that I've shielded for so long. And she said, this is natural. This is absolutely fine. And like you, I was really good at this, but I needed work with this and I needed that. So from that, I learned what I needed support with when it came to, I've got all the ideas, but sometimes my thing is then trying to put that down. But today in 2026, I use Apple all the time because I dictate all the time, so I can get everything down. And ChatGPT has been absolutely phenomenal as well to help. And I will use AI, and it's not to use AI to write my work, but having it enhanced. And it's like when I was self-employed, I had a friend, really good friend, and I used to say, please come and write reports. And I'd pay her to write reports. And she used to go to me, Sam, what are you trying to say? And I go, I'm trying to say this. And it used to be like watching a composer on a piano, because she'd stand there with her fingers over the keyboard, and she'd go silent, and then she'd go do, and I'd just sit in the bed watching her go, and her fingers would be going and all that kind of stuff. And then she'd read out, and I said, yeah, that's exactly what I'm trying to say. And I used things like that over the years, and my confidence also grew because I worked for Surrey County Council, and I moved from Surrey County Council. I went and worked for Barchester. And when I was working for Barchester, I worked with this line manager, and she really challenged me. And, because I can be someone you have to start, I can be challenging. And after 3 weeks, I remember saying to this woman, oh my God, I've only had 3 weeks induction and she dumped me here. And I'd gone from a local authority home, Paul, to a private sector, completely miles apart. When I saw the size of these bedrooms in this home, I was nearly crying because I come from a home where when I'd someone end of life, we had to take everything out of the room just to pull the bed out from the wall so the families could go both sides of the bed. And then I went to Barchester, which was a new build. This home was only there 4 years, and it was like 5-star. And it was like, oh my good. The day I went in for my interview, I was like, wow. But this woman rang me up. My line manager rang me up and challenged me about saying I've only been here for 3 weeks, and said, if I didn't think you were good enough, if I didn't think you were able to do the job, you wouldn't have got the job, and I wouldn't have left you after 3 weeks. And that was such a kick in the backside for me, because I was like, okay, I've not been left here. I know what I'm doing. And that was it. And she was another significant figure in my life. There was another significant figure in my life, and that was another woman. They've all been women that have been significant in my life when I worked for a training company. And she was she was fabulous, just working for her. And I was managing a substance misuse unit with families, and I'd come to burnout, and this job came up, and I really wanted to go into training. I'd just done my level 4 back then, registered manager with this company, and rang up inquiring about it. And I'd spoken to my assessor, and I said, I'd really like to work, but I don't have the qualifications. And she trained me up. She trained me up to do my petals. She trained me up to do my A1 award. And I was an assessor and trainer, and we did work together. That's how I got into Surrey County Council, actually, because we did consultancy work. So every job I've had is kind of led from one job to the other, but I've had significant women along the way. The Betton Shop, the Allen Centre, Revolutions, Barchester. They've all been significant people in my life that are still in my life today, but have given me that kind of confidence to take that leap in doing what I'm doing, and that self-belief. Because like back in 2016, Paul, when it came to emails, I didn't do soft skills. I used to write emails, I'd go bump. When I was working under Barchester, and the manager, my line manager, she taught me how to do the soft skills. So write what you need, so get out of my head. Then go back in, put in, I hope this email fires you well, and put a nice ending, and not just be so harsh, not be so blunt, because that's what I can be like sometimes. I'm direct. So I've learned those little skills over the years.
Just, Sam, it's great. And it's sort of like you can now start to see the pathway and the journey into leadership, and realizing that actually the influence to make those steps, it came from two sides. One side for you to feel confident enough to do it, but two, to give someone to instill that confidence in you, to allow you to know that it's the right move to make. So when you've moved into leadership itself, so you've gone on to be a manager in your own right at that point, what skills did you take from those people that influenced you? So in other words, what mold of manager did you become?
Listening was a key one. Not being reactive, not jumping the gun, being, even talking to my line manager in Barchester, we're friends, even before I started this new job yesterday. And she still does that same things. Just listen. Keep your mouth in check. That's what she says to me. Keep your mouth in check. And that's what I've learned. I've learned to take deep breaths, to sit back and listen, to observe, to be available. Like yesterday, I was my first day in a job, and I made myself available and greeting people. So then people came to me and introduced themselves, and I asked people about their jobs and how long they've worked there, because that's what they've all taught me how to do. And it's also what I've learned, how the best to get out of people is to make myself available. And to me, it's about being listened to, because, Paul, I felt for years I wasn't listened to. And I think it's key to listen to people. And as a leader, I might not agree with what they're saying. I might not be able to change what they want, but I will always listen. And I think when you're in any position, I have to listen to the people that I've got working underneath me, because they are my eyes and my ears on the ground. I'm not going to be, when I'm in a big home or a little home, I'm not, and it's over 4 floors or 3 floors, I can't be on all those floors. So I have to be able to trust my staff team. And some people are like, well, how do you do that? I have to be able to do it. I say to myself, I have to trust these staff team. They wouldn't have the job they have if they weren't able to do it. So I have to trust them, because then I know that my residents are being looked after. But then I'm also visible. I'm on the floor. I get to know my residents. I think that was one of the key things I was taught very early on when I started working in the sector, was get to know the people I'm caring for. And it's knowing my residents. And I learned that through working with my staff team. So I learn and listening to them, I get to know my residents. So it's just like, I don't want to say a factory system, but it's a flow. By listening to the staff, I get to know my residents. It's like it's the wheel of how the whole service works, and it keeps going round and round in a positive way. But yeah, listening. That's one thing they've all taught me, is I need to listen.
I think that's such a valuable lesson for anybody. When you're talking, you're not listening, and you may miss something that is actually utterly important. And it's one thing I've had to develop over time, because I was very much a talker. If we had a meeting, 90% of it is going to be me talking. 10% of it is going to be figuring out whether they've understood, and then 5% of it is, mixed it up there. That within that 10% will be the action plan, and normally it's the action plan that I want. And ultimately, if you're the person that's doing the talking all the time, then people will just agree and do that. But you're missing out on valuable information that may have changed your mind or set you on a different course. And it's something I've had to do. I think part of that comes with age, when you actually realize that you don't know it all. And if you've got people in the room, listen to what they've got to say. I think that's a big part, just bringing this back now, where we can talk about inspection bodies. One, you would wish they would listen, but two, you also need to look at the inspection report and listen yourself, because they're giving a viewpoint of what they've seen. And ultimately, they are a complete stranger to your service. So whilst you may not agree with them, or you may turn around at that point and say, well, what's the chances that that would happen when they were in the building? But it did. And if it happened when they're in the building, the likelihood is then that it's happening when they're not in the building. So I always say to people, the first instance we have to do in any situation is remove the defense barrier. And that even goes with prejudice. Remove the defense barrier, first of all, listen to it. You don't have to agree with it, but once you've listened to it, you have an opportunity to redirect it. If you don't listen to it, you can't redirect it. So having that understanding of where root causes are coming from and being able to deal with them will only come is if you start to listen. And in terms of I love the line that your managers used. I can't remember it word for word, but it was almost like keep your gob shut.
That was what you were saying to me.
That's what, I use a line now with a lot of people and say, listen, anything that I say to you is, I'm talking to you as a professional. And if I'm talking to you as a professional, it means that I'm trying to help you with your development, or showcase to you that there is different opportunities available to you. If you take it personally, I'm not talking to you personally, because if we were having a personal discussion and I didn't like you personally, I'm not going to work with you. That's as simple as. So that's a completely different avenue to go down. So, whether it's given what you class as maybe sometimes being that critical friend, it's on a professional level that you're doing it. It's not personal. So stop taking it personal. I think when I explain that to a lot of people, particularly people within my team, then they understand that if I'm saying something, it's because I've seen something that I need them to work on or alter. It's not personal. And I've started to work that out myself, take emotion out of certain situations, because emotions can actually determine a completely different outcome to the one that's trying to be achieved.
Absolutely.
So, Sam, in terms of, you've just started this new job. I think it's an interim manager.
Yep.
So in terms of, you've got such a vast experience of knowledge within the industry from those management positions. Yeah, I'm not sure if you want to tell people your age, but you're like me, we're no spring chickens anymore. Nope. We're not sat here at 22.
No, I'm going to be 57 at the end of this month, Paul.
Right. So where's the passion still come from?
Oh, it's a passion for life. Listen, do you know what? We have a saying in my family. I do need to mention them because, they all live in Ireland, but they have been absolutely my mum has been, and my dad have been there, being my backbone all these years. That's also where the support and determination and the resilience and all that kind of comes from them as well. And they've been, the last couple of years, as you've seen that I had cancer. I've had cancer now a couple of times, and I've also nearly lost 10 stone. So I've lost, where am I today? I've lost 56 kilos to date. So that'll be 2 years in March. It was only 3 years ago on a Sunday that I had full radical hysterectomy. And I've always stayed positive because, Paul, I am a positive person. I'm optimistic. And I know that my optimism has really annoyed people over the years. But that's the only way to, we don't have long in this life. We have a saying in the family, we only get one shot at this. Life's too short. We are always saying it together. I want to make every day count. And I don't want to spend my life miserable. What is the point in existing if I'm miserable? I want to get out there and experience and do stuff and have fun and just, it's an adventure and let's do it. I'm going on a cruise in March, April. And Paul, I cannot wait to go on this cruise. And it's a massive, big cruise. And that's another thing off the bucket list. Just, do these things. Don't sit, like when I got interviewed for this job, they said, have you any annual leave? I went, yes, I've got 2 weeks away with my mother in March. There's nothing getting in front of that. I had 2 weeks away in November with my mum. I went home for Christmas. There's nothing going to get in front of those things anymore. Will you work Christmas anymore? No, I won't work Christmas and New Year, Paul, anymore. I did it for over 20 odd years, but now I'm like, no, I want to spend it with my family. So it's prioritizing the things that are really important to me. And if it means I don't get jobs, I don't get jobs. Like I applied for so many jobs over Christmas and I got turned down for so many jobs as regional support managers, as consultants. I've been turned down for training and development jobs, working for companies that I thought, my God, I would have got shortlisted. But then I think sometimes maybe it's my experience is too much that they wouldn't bring me on board. But I got to keep going. I make those phone calls. I pick the phone up. Anything going on? Any jobs going? LinkedIn is phenomenal. I think LinkedIn is one of the best platforms for my work, and promoting my work has been really good. And then what I want to do in the future, my plans, my goals, what's driving me and all that kind of stuff. And it's sitting down and reflecting on it. And, going back to listening, it's also about me listening to myself. And I spent many years just working and not listening, not taking care of myself. And, getting cancer has completely changed that, where I do look after myself. I identify Paul as a food addict. I say the Serenity Prayer several times a day. That's one of my mantras is I say that Serenity Prayer. In the morning before I get out of the bed, I will sit and I will pause and I will say the Serenity Prayer, and I will have those, before we went online this morning, I sat here and I had grounded myself and I said my Serenity Prayer and I'm not religious, but that mantra means so much to me. I have a poster up in front of me that says, I'm doing my best. I remind myself, I am enough. I say that to myself so many times, sometimes during the day. There's other days I don't say it, but then there's days I do say it to myself. And I also meditate. I do a 10-minute meditation. That's the minimum I do each day. And it's around self-love. And, I trained to be a therapist 20 odd years ago, which was one of the best £10,000 I ever spent. And I don't think as humans, we give ourselves enough. We don't give ourselves, we have to give back. It's like when you go to the gym in the morning, you put a podcast on and you get your water in and you get this in. That's your version of your self-love.
Absolutely.
My version of my self-care and my self-love and my self-belief is doing all those things every day.
And that point you made, which I think is a LinkedIn post I put on not so long ago, it was the reason why I love that time in the morning is because it's my time. Yeah. Because as soon as 9 o'clock hits, I'm available to everybody. And when you run so many different businesses, your head can spin in different angles, literally within an hour. So I never want to give up that time, because actually that's the time I don't actually have to think of anything other than myself. And the listening to the podcast part is literally, first of all, it de-stresses me. But second of all, I may sit there and go, that's a bloody good idea what he's just said. And that will set me up for the day ahead. I can't miss those things. So it's a bit like yourself a priority. And I say this to a lot of CEOs that I coach and mentor. You have to take care of yourself first, because there is no one that will not face burnout in any level of their workplace. But at a higher level, it's more likely that it's going to happen because of the stresses that are put upon you, and you have to think of everybody. And that's the key bit. So if you keep your own well-being and you find ways to de-stress yourself, you'll be much calmer in those situations where everybody around you seems to be running around on fire and you've got to put the fires out. So that, were you saying, so some people would maybe turn around and say, I'm not employing somebody if they won't work Christmas and New Year, or they won't do this or that, or she's 57 years old. Yeah. At the end of the day, that just means that how would your values have sat working with somebody who thought like that? It just wouldn't have worked anyway. So finding a company that actually goes, no, absolutely, I agree with you.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you'll find your home.
Mm-hmm.
And if you can't find your home there, then you create it yourself.
Yeah.
And you bring people like-minded into your situation, which is what I've done. I started life as a care assistant. I rose my way up to being a registered manager, director of operations, working in big companies and organizations, and dealing with a lot of stress for minimal amount of income, to the point where I thought, no, so that I'm going to try this myself. And I've gone on to create several different businesses, but it doesn't mean that I'm de-stressed. Actually, what it showed me sometimes is, oh, sugar, I've got to make the biggest decisions now. When this was somebody else, this could be passed up the chain. There is no chain to pass this up to. So therefore, it's important to me that I have that time. And I actually understand myself, see the signs of burnout, because it's dangerous. It's very bloody dangerous. Now, you've had to, just listening to your story, and I cannot believe, we're almost an hour into this already, and there's so much more, Sam, that I would want to sort of like get talking about. But just listening to your story, from the origins of Ireland, from growing up in the 90s to the move to England, to going to Brighton, to all the prejudices and the discrimination you faced, and your determination, your loss to take on voluntary work, to upskill yourself, to work in different settings to make ends meet, but still take development opportunities from them, to then move into a management world and lead teams. And even from a self-employed perspective, the teaching, the mentoring, the coaching, it's a heck of a bloody journey that you've gone on. And then to top that, you add cancer to the mix. You add the fact of, I believe, if I'm right, and correct me if I'm wrong, that one of the things that pushed you into the weight loss was very much around the cancer. Is that correct?
Yeah, because of the type of cancer I had. Estrogen was the core of my cancer. And of course, my fat cells, what are fat cells full of estrogen? And you know what it was, Paul? I was like, I am collecting my state pension. I have not worked my butt off to not collect that pension when I'm 67. I was like, I am getting that pension. I was like, so I had another property. I sold it. I went private. I went back to the same surgeon because I'd had a gastric band years ago. And I went back to the same surgeon and said, Guy, let's get the sleeve done. And did the sleeve, and been doing the sleeve for a year. And I've been doing Manjaro for the last year with the dietitian, because I got 2 years of aftercare.
Yeah.
And it's been a phenomenal journey. It's been fantastic. I can't, the wins have not been the scales. It's been a lifestyle change. It's been a humongous lifestyle change for me. Last year, one of my big wins in last year, there was several big wins, but one of my biggest wins was getting on a flight with Aer Lingus, Ryanair, EasyJet, and not having to get an extension, and the table being able to go down in front of me, and me being able to put my drink on it. They were my 3 big wins. One of my big wins last year. Having to bring send clothes back to Marks and Spencer's because they're too big when I bought them. Empty my wardrobe because my clothes are all too big for me. Paul, I've never, in my 56 years, I've never experienced doing stuff like that. I've got rid of stuff because it's been, too small. But also what I did was, when I got cancer, I did a clear out. I had clothes in my wardrobe for years and years, and I'd like, I'll fit into them. I got rid of that mindset. It was like, no, I don't do that anymore. So it was a huge lifestyle change. And, some people were like, oh, don't do it. And I was like, no, I'm doing it. And it was, having the surgery was the, I can manage it. And it's talking, I meet what our monthly conversations, and those wins have been phenomenal. So they have. I'm going to Lanzarote in March, and I'm going to go kite surfing because now I'm 19 stone. And I had to get to 19 stone before I was able to go on an electric bike, before I was able to go kite surfing, before I was able to do so many things. I had to get to 19 stone. Well, I've hit the 19 stone now, so I can do these things. So, yeah.
I mean, I'm going to say something, and I hope you or anybody else listening does not take it offensively, what I'm going to say. It's something I was thinking about as you were talking. You've taken what could be seen as an absolute disaster in being diagnosed with cancer and having to go through all the treatment, and changed your life, by the sounds of it, 100% for the better. Therefore, that led me to a question of, in my own head is, would that have happened without the cancer, do you think?
I'm going to be honest. No, I don't think it would have. I actually don't think I would have had the same drive, Paul. I think I would still have had the surgery because I was so unhappy being the way I was and how it affected me in my life. And I also knew that emotionally I ate. I stress ate. I emotionally ate. And I don't do that anymore. I also had therapy, I have to say, when I was going through the cancer treatment, because you get through the NHS, I got therapy as part of the diagnosis. And that was, because I did crumble. I have to say, in April, I got diagnosed in 2022. I had the cancer in 2023. I had all the treatment and radiotherapy and that kind of stuff. And I got to the April and I crumbled. And I'd also come out of a relationship and I completely crumbled. And that therapy was so important, having that support to talk through the whole process of grieving about cancer and the worry about it. And then in the September of that year, I then went and saw my gynecologist. And, I had to recognize I was very lucky, Paul, because the only reason I found out I had it was because my coil wouldn't come out. I went away on holidays with my parents. We went away for a couple of weeks. I got a letter. I couldn't get the coil, so I went up to hospital, Haywards Heath. They still couldn't get it out. They took a biopsy and they said, you got abnormal cells. Well, I'd had that before. So I just completely, I was like, I'll do that appointment when I come back. And then I walked in and he said, you've got stage 3 aggressive cancer. And you could have just done that to me. I would have fallen off the chair because I was not expecting him to say that to me. And I flew home and told the family. I didn't tell them. I didn't want to do it over. I didn't want to tell my parents like this. And I flew home to Ireland and told them. And my mum moved in for 6 weeks after I had the hysterectomy. The whole family have been just phenomenal. And my friendship circle have been fantastic with support. But the therapy for the NHS has been phenomenal. And recognizing that, thank God, I had a horrible menopause because otherwise I would never have got the coil fitted and I would never have found out. Because she said by the time we would have found out you had cancer, it would have been too late.
Sam, I think you are an absolute inspiration. And I'm not just saying that because it's an easy thing to say. I've listened to your entire journey, and I hope people watching this have stayed tuned and followed this journey, because you're an absolute advocate that for no matter what happens in life, use it to your advantage. Use it to a way in which you can change something, develop something, surround yourself with something. Don't look at it as a negative, look at it as an opportunity. And I think that message alone can take people, it sounds awful, but we hear too many times of, the victim, and I've used that. I'm going to be honest, I've used it, they've got a victim mentality. It's the easiest thing for us to slip into.
Absolutely.
Easiest thing.
Yeah.
But it's how do you get yourself out of that? Because what you've described today, Sam, is in every single circumstance, you have not allowed yourself to be the victim. You may have slipped into victim mentality, but you've found a way to pull yourself out, and you've used support services to do that. And that's why I always say around therapy, never be ashamed to turn around and say you're seeing a therapist, because sometimes you just got to go and talk. I mean, I'm also a therapist, as you are, and I'm not here to sell a therapy session, but therapists don't give you the answers. They just help you to untwist and untangle your feelings, your emotions, that actually you can start to see a way forward instead of being trapped in the weed. So that side alone is the safety zone of being able to speak to someone who will not be prejudiced towards you, will not have an opinion on you. That's the key bit. I don't want to build relationships with someone that I'm giving therapy to. I want that to be a professional boundary, because I don't want them to ever think that I'm passing judgment on the situation. So, I would always say in those situations, look at what there is positive that can come out of this and move forward. And I think just listening to what you've said, absolutely amazing. I can see why, as a leader with all these different life experiences, how you would be. I'd imagine that you're a very empathetic type of leader. So you mentioned before the key thing, listening. Listen to the whole story. Absolutely. See how you can help. And in your teaching world, I would imagine you were very much a humanistic style of teacher as opposed to a behaviorist style of teacher.
Absolutely. I used to do training sessions, Paul. I used to do a course. I got inspected by CQC, right? So 6 of them walked in. I'd only been in the service less than 2 months. 6 inspectors walked in, and I was like, Jesus. And the lead inspector sat down in front of me, and she said, "You don't remember me?" And I said, "No." And when you're going, my brain was going, "Oh my God, what have I?" The way she said it to me, I thought, "Oh, what have I said?" And I said, "Where?" And she said, "Because I used to deliver training for East Sussex County Council." She said, "I went to one of your training sessions." And I said, "Oh, tell me I told you to leave your job." She said, "No, you didn't tell me, but you did tell someone in the class." So I used to do this course called Being Assertive, Avoiding Conflict. And I used to listen to these staff members that were working in really horrible environments, toxic. And I used to say, just leave, get another job.
Yeah.
Because it's not conducive. It's not help you. You're miserable. Look at how you are today with me. You are so miserable and you're unhappy. And she said, "No, you told someone else to leave." And I said, "Oh, good. I thought you were going to say something I was in trouble or something like that." And she said, "No." But she was so lovely the day that and I said to her, I knew we weren't going to get good because I'd only walked into the service. I'd only been there less than 2 months. And I said, "It's A, B, C, and D." And she came back to me at the end of the day and they all went, "You were right. So you know what you've got to work on."
Yeah.
And then a year later, 2 inspectors walk in and I went from requires improvement to good across all 5 domains. But I don't see the point in staying in something I'm not happy in. It's the same with jobs, Paul. If I'm not happy, I will leave. I don't see the point. And I do have pity parties, trust me. And that's where my mum is an absolute rock, because I'll ring her up and she'll go, or if she doesn't hear from me, she'll text me. And that's the cue. Ring your mother. Because I usually ring her nearly every day for a chinwag. And then if I get the text, she said, "You're avoiding me." And when she said, "What's wrong?" And then we talk.
Yeah.
And there is days where I just think, I want to go the biggest 2 words in the world to the whole world, like just leave me alone. Or when I'm having a pity party, because I do have pity parties. I had a stinking cold at the weekend. I didn't have a pity party, but I spent Friday on the sofa with the cat sitting on me, watching Hawaii 5-0 with the fire on. It was bliss. And that's another important thing, is to give myself those days, because that feels a real luxury, Paul. When I have a day where I just stay in my pajamas, watching TV with the fire on and me and the cat.
Absolutely.
The rest day.
Absolutely.
And I know I don't do it enough. And as humans, we don't do that enough.
No, we don't. Yeah. Absolutely, we don't. Sam, one last bit I want to touch on. We've covered quite a lot, but you know, in terms of your role in mentoring, in terms of your role in coaching people, you are a huge advocate for women in the workplace, women actually achieving greatness, women getting to the top of the ladder. But I think from a personal perspective, is that because you think there is still a prejudice against women being able to achieve higher positions in the workplace?
Yes, I think there is, but I also think the other thing is that there's not people out there that enable women, to give them that self-belief to actually, you can do this. Because sometimes, Paul, all you need is that some person to say, you can do this. I wouldn't have left you there after 3 weeks if I didn't think you could manage that service. And that's what one of my old bosses said to me all them years ago. And, the betting shop, well, you sit, I'll show you how to do that, and I'll do a cashier. That role reversal.
Do you feel like you're giving back? Is that where the passion comes from there?
But also, I believe that, everybody should be given the chance, whether it doesn't matter who it is. But if I see something in somebody, when I sit and I do supervisions and appraisals and that kind of stuff with people, and, they don't see the positivity in them. They don't see their skill set. They don't see how they enable people. They don't see how they support the residents to do things. And I need to point that out. Positivity, Paul, is not something that it comes very natural. Whatever sector we work in, but within our sector, it's like, we have a job to do, get on with it. And sometimes that is the attitude that I've come across over the years. But it's about being able to say to people, you can do that. Because that's all it takes, is that one person to give you that little pat in the back, or that little hold of the elbow or hold their hand. That's the other thing. It's like just holding somebody's hand while they go off and do something is significant, because, you know, I've worked with people who had done, I interviewed this woman many years ago, and then she rang me up and she said, I'm now the registered manager of a home. And she said, that's down to you. And I'm like, how is that down to me? She said, because you believed in me.
Do you know, Sam, I've got so many stories like that over my years, even people moving abroad that I taught in a classroom for 6 hours, creating a new life for themselves and now being senior lecturers at universities such as Massey University in New Zealand. So it's, you kind of, I think this is so powerful, what I'm about to say, is when you speak, you don't know who's listening and what they're hearing, but you may just say something that plants a seed in someone's mind to actually make them literally change their life. So I always say, especially in leadership, be mindful what you are saying, and even in teaching, be mindful what you are saying, and always look for that positive outcome. I agree with what you said before, Sam, about if you're not happy in your job, why are you doing it? If it's based on salary alone, then find other mechanisms, because otherwise you're just going to be depressed and unhappy for the remainder of your time there. And that's, I believe, where the term work-life balance really sits, is when someone actually doesn't like going to work, but they like being at home. They haven't got a balance. If you actually enjoy going into your workplace and you've created a new family inside that workplace, you will have the balance of both sides. Yeah, I've always thought, be very mindful what you are saying and how it's influencing people. Is it a positive influence or is it a negative influence? In terms of what I see from your work, Sam, and speaking to you before we went on to recording, I think there is a part of you that wants to empower others to achieve what they're capable of achieving. And I think from that, if you, and I've spouted this so many times as well, if you take the percentage of females that work in health and social care and then you look at the number of people in the top roles of directorship in that, it doesn't add up in terms of the female male dividend or divide.
No. I was talking to a gentleman yesterday who said he's a nurse, he's nurse trained, and he went like that when he qualified because he was a male nurse. And he overtook people in band. He was on about band 7s and 8s in the NHS, Paul. I know that they're quite high bands, but he was significant in his growth because he was a male nurse over a female nurse. And when I hear stories like that, I'm delighted for him, but I'm like, how is that fair?
Sam, I absolutely agree with you. I look at my own development. I rose very quickly through the ranks. I believe as a male, because there wasn't many of males in the industry at that time. So I believe I rose that quickly. I got opportunities that others didn't. And I always had people directly underneath me working who were female. And in fairness, they were better than me, but they never got the same opportunity. It's why when I had the opportunity to start creating my own businesses, if you look at my entire team, they're all female. And it's because I've only ever had females there, and I know what they're capable of doing. But every one of them, I could rhyme off so many that should have jumped above me, but that opportunity wasn't there. And I hope we're starting to break through some of that. I know it's not fully broken, but I think we need women to come up with a stronger voice and unite together on this as well. I think that's a big part of it. Males are quite good at saying what they want, particularly in a room full of females. And it's maybe that alpha side that comes out in them. And I think the females that naturally were getting to those positions had to adopt a male mentality or have the characteristics, i.e. I won't have children, I work every hour under the sun. When actually, if you look at it, the whole service is delivered by, in the main, females. So if you want the greatest services that are operated, then surely you need people that understand the whole operational side to it, and from the client's perspective, to sit them at the top of the tree. So absolutely, I support you in everything you're doing and saying, and hope that you go on into the future and encourage a lot more women to actually have a voice and put themselves in the positions, at least apply for the job. That's the main thing, because some people will put themselves off because they don't feel like they're good enough, and they're bloody well good enough.
They're well
Absolutely.
good enough. And I think, Paul, do you know the other big significant thing for me and in my life, and especially when you're talking about men there, is like I got to my mid-40s, which is prime. I think any age is prime, but in my mid-40s, and then I hit the perimenopause, and that had a huge impact on me. And that's a significant decade in my life in going through the process of that, and the amount of women that go through that. And some women, their journeys are very different. But I had a really, I had a rocky road in the few years. And management wise, I was managing at the time where I didn't get it right, where the fuse was short, where it was just all too much for me. But then I went and got support. And I think that goes back again. We don't access enough support in this country. And the support is out there. Whether it doesn't matter who we are, what we are, where we're going, we need to be able to access the support. And it's not being ashamed to access that support. I will be the first person that will lift my hand up and go, can someone help me with something? Because that's how I learn. Otherwise, I'm never going to be able to change things or take on board things or listening to myself. And it's saying, I need support with this. There's nothing wrong with saying, I need support. And I think as humans, we need to do more of that sometimes.
100%. And I think there's a couple of things people don't understand, especially when it comes from coaching and mentoring, which is a form of support, is often I will get a company that asks me can you take this manager and can you do some mentoring with this manager? And the first thing you're asking is, in what areas is this person you're looking for development? To which they will give every criticism of this person that they can find. And you'll be saying, but do they know they need developing in this area? Because it's much easier to mentor someone if they approach you as opposed to them being forced. Because if they're forced to approach you, it looks like it's a disciplinary that's actually occurring here. So I often try and have that breakthrough discussion. But one of the things I will always explain to them is I have mentors right now, and I've had them all my life, and I have people that I go to. You talk about your mom, that's a mentor. Ultimately, we should all, somebody once said to me, well, what's the point in having a coach? And I said, you name one Olympic athlete that doesn't have a coach.
Absolutely.
Name one. And by the way, the Olympic athlete is better at the skill than the coach is. The coach is just there to make sure that their goal that they want to achieve is kept in line, hitting target, and following the process that needs to happen. Because if it's left to our own devices, we'll wander all over the bloody place like sheep.
Absolutely.
So that's why I would always say, especially developing, if you want to go into management, seek managers, speak to managers. If someone reached out to you, Sam, on LinkedIn and said, I'm looking to become a manager in the future and I was after some advice, I'm sure the first thing you're not slapping them with is an invoice. It'll be I'm here to talk. Yeah,
absolutely. Talk to me. And I've met people over the years, when I go to meetings and they'll ring me up and say, Sam, can I run this by you? Well, I've also done that, Paul. Like when I worked for Brighton and Hove for a short time, and I'd not worked for it. I'd been working in East Sussex for years. And I rang a manager from another home and I said, can I run this by you? And I met her at a skills for care workshop and got the names. And that's how I access support. I ring other people in the area because they've been there for years. Yes, Sam, this is what you do. This is who you contact, all that kind of stuff. They're the ones with the more knowledge in that moment at that time because you're new to something and you just want to access those people.
And I think an important part there, Sam, is trying to get across to people. If there's anybody listening to this that's thinking, I'd like to push for that promotion, but I'm not sure if I'm good enough. I need to make this perfectly clear. None of us thought we were good enough at the time.
Nope.
None of us. And when we got there, we all had that imposter syndrome that hit no matter what the position was.
Yeah.
You all had that imposter syndrome. But what you will soon learn when you look around yourself is that actually you're good enough and sometimes a lot better than what's already there.
Absolutely.
And that's where the confidence will come from. But never wait until you think you're ready.
Yep.
Because you'll never be ready at that point. You have to go for it.
Yep. And plan. I sit down and I plan. I have a book, Paul, where I sit and I do a lot of mind mapping. And I see it and I just, plan ideas, set my goals. How do I want to do this? How am I going to do this? What do I need to do this? And that's with my personal life and my professional life. And I'll sit down and I'll, because it can all be up here, but sometimes I need to see it down here on paper. So then I know which way I want to go. And, I started a new position yesterday, but I have plans. I want to set up a support group for registered managers. I want to set up there's a hell of a lot of small care home providers. And I learned that when I did a little 18-bedroom home, that there's no support for them. And I want to set up something so that they can access support. Because my long-term goal is I want to get the 60 call. I want to be remote because I want to spend my winters in Spain and I want to come back here for the summer. And that's where my goals are. And that's what I want to do. I don't need to do the progression of career. I always wanted to be an operations manager. That's where I wanted to go, but I don't need to do that anymore. I like doing what I'm doing and I'm happy doing what I'm doing. And that's the main thing.
Sam, following on from this, I'm sure we'll touch base anyway, but anything that we can do to not necessarily assist you to the sunny climates of Spain, but certainly if it's helping the industry as a whole, we'd certainly love to have those discussions around that, because I do agree with you in terms of support services, that the larger operations have internal built support systems. The smaller operations don't have the finances to do it, so you're very isolated.
Absolutely. And it's lonely, Paul. It's it's lonely. Even when you're working for those big companies, it can feel, I have felt very lonely. But when you're working for those small ones, I am doing everything. Yeah. And it was a really good learning opportunity that I came across. But yeah, I want to set up something. So yeah, I've got my ideas and I'm just going to have to just work towards it.
Fantastic. As regular viewers of this will know, my team always give me all the questions that I'm supposed to ask. And it normally ends for me on question 1. And then all of a sudden, everything just becomes a blur on this piece of paper because we just get on one. But I always try and drag it back to the last 2 points because then it keeps them happy. But it's also very interesting to hear. So I'm going to ask you, in terms of advice, before we wrap up, if you could leave one piece of advice, lesson, or reminder for anyone listening, whether they're building a business, leading a team, or just figuring life out, what would it be?
Don't be afraid to ask for support.
Yeah. I think that is a critical part of advice to give people. You're never alone. You've just got to look.
Yeah. Don't be afraid. Just ask. There is always support out there. It may not in that moment feel like it, but there is.
And as Sam mentioned about LinkedIn being a great resource, it is. There's so many knowledgeable, experienced professionals on there that if you message them, they would respond. Because one thing that, it's a bit like myself. I come on and do this. No one's paid me. There's no endorsement sat there. But you just want to be able to help people. It is that giving back. So reach out and ask for support. There's more people than you think would give you support and advice. Okay, last word, the launch list. If you had the opportunity to share a launch with any 3 individuals, past, present, who would you choose and what would you hope to learn from each of them?
So it would be Kelly Holmes, it would be Tom Daly, and it would be Daley Thompson.
Okay, so you picked 3 people from the worlds of sports and Olympics.
Yeah.
So what are those 3 individuals to you then?
Well, Daley Thompson, when I was competing, because I used to do the shot put, I used to watch him all the time. He was I suppose in some ways, that inspiration, that motivation. And when athletics used to be on TV and watch, and I used to just love watching him. Yeah. Tom Daly, I have followed him since he was a little fella in his first Olympics. And, he lost his biggest coach and his biggest supporter, his dad. And he's gone out there and he's come back and he's gone back out there. And just the last Olympics, I just think is just fantastic. His determination is just phenomenal. Kelly Holmes, I would love to meet Kelly Holmes. I'm going to go to her cat in Tunbridge, Wales. I'm going to track it down. I'm going to find her. And just to say hello and just to say thank you, because watching her compete as well back in the 80s and 90s, and just what she does for women's health, women's mental health, women's growth. And she's really open about her journey and her injuries. And Tom Daly's been the same. And so was Daley Thompson back. And all three of them, like you said earlier on, they've all got coaches. And, you know, when I competed, I had coaches. And my coach was my dad. And he was my coach from when I was 11 to 19. And they're the three people, yes, I'd love to sit down and just talk to them and just say, and especially the eras, because Daley Thompson was the 80s and then
80s,
Kelly and
yeah.
then and just their journeys and what has changed for them over the years. What was the significant changes for them in their growth and in their development and in their determination to be the best at what they do and win Olympic golds.
Just listening to you speak there, Sam, I think what you've done is you've chosen three people there. You have a lot of similarities with them all in your life journey, because you're looking at people that face discrimination, prejudice, setbacks, end of career injuries, being let go by people, let down by people, loss, and still manage somehow to keep moving forward, keep focused on a dream and a goal and achieve it, which, listening to you today, sums you up too.
Thank you. I hadn't even thought of that at the beginning of what you said. I hadn't even thought about the reason the three of them. But thank you, Paul.
You're very welcome. Sam, I've loved this, and I'm sure people listening will also take a lot from it. I think we've covered so many bases, and I hope for the listener it makes sense, because we did sort of like all of a sudden go here, there, and there, but that's a life story. That's a life's journey. It never goes to plan. There's always speed bumps that are going to get thrown in the way. There's always people that are going to build brick walls. Our job is to navigate them, get over them, and carry on. And I think from today's guest, you have heard that loud and clear. So that's it for another episode of Behind the Briefcase. Make sure, please go over and follow us on LinkedIn. That will allow you to get every episode as they land and to get updates. If you go onto YouTube, I know a lot of people don't hit the subscribe button, but it does help if you do hit the subscribe button, because you'll get informed as well on your YouTube channel there's an up and coming episode. And catch up on some of the other episodes that have been released. We've had amazing guests, as I said, and obviously guests such as Sam today, absolute inspiration. I will catch you on the next episode of Behind the Briefcase. So until then, please have a great time, a safe time, and continue to focus on those goals and achieve those successes that you rightly deserve. Till then, stay safe. Thank you.